Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of That Gay Old Classic Cinema. I'm your host, Chris, and I have with me the hosts of the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, Andrew Rimby and Mary DiPipi with me today, and Travis Rountree. We're going to be discussing one of my sentimental favorite films, Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. Came out in let me check my IMDb. It came out in
I think 1958.
58,
Yeah.
starring James Stewart and Kim Novak. And Kim Novak again, because she's in a dual role this time. Right.
I just have to say right at the top, I mean, as a kid who grew up with a fear of heights, and let me just say, like, my sister and I grew up on black and white, on Hitchcock. Like at the age of 5 years old, we're watching this film. And I felt so seen because here I am, a little 5-year-old terrified of heights. And here is Jimmy Stewart being like, yeah, same. This sucks.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. Do you want us to go around and say our names and pronouns just because everyone's probably like, wait, is that Mary? Because that is Mary.
Yeah. Yes, we
Sorry,
could if you want. Yeah, Andrew, go right ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, we're coming in hot. I mean, for the audience out there, we've all been like chatting and enjoying this summer transition weather. So I think our juices are flowing. But yeah, I'm Andrew Rimby, the host of the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and my pronouns are he, him, and I was so lucky to be on The Sound of Music, the first ever episode of That Old Gay Classic Cinema. So also shout out to Christian and being a sponsor of the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. So yeah, if you haven't listened to the Sound of Music episode, I talk about being gay, a gay high schooler playing Captain Von Trapp. So it was a moment. But yeah, can't wait for Vertigo. I've taught this film twice, so it was fun to rewatch it.
Going counterclockwise. So Travis, you're next.
Hey, I'm Travis Rountree, he, him pronouns. I'm an assistant professor at Western Carolina University. I'm also the chair of our local Pride Festival here, Silva Pride. I'm on Blue Ridge Pride's board, and I'm also currently the president of the Appalachian Studies Association. So I do all the things, and it's ridiculous. But I loved this film, and I'm so glad that you're including me in this discussion. I am sort of a newcomer to the film. I saw it years ago, but yeah, I just echo Mary. Like, as a person who's like kind of afraid of heights, the older I get, I'm like, oh hell no. In this beginning of the film, I was like, oh, like, Even putting up Christmas lights, I'm like, nope, I'm gonna get a friend of mine to do that. No, ma'am. So, but thanks for having me on.
Of course, and last but not least, Mary.
Hi. So I am Mary DiPipi, first and foremost, afraid of heights. And also, I am a marketing specialist, but my favorite role is the podcast host of True Crime and Academia. I have been very aware of Hitchcock and this movie Vertigo since literal childhood. My sister and I were always grown with or grew up with these older films, and Hitchcock was something that was both of our parents' favorites. So I literally remember watching this movie at like 5 and 6 years old. And as I mentioned off screen, like felt very validated with Jimmy Stewart's fear of heights and just being like, finally, here, everyone, do you see this? This is how I feel.
Well, I think we can all agree that all of us have our own individual fear of heights, myself included. I can go on roller coasters, but if they're not too high, and I can't do. I actually, fun fact, I went to the Rockefeller Rockin' Heights. It was like a Highlander, but it was like a spinning round like bar in New York City in Times Square. And let me tell you, I went with my best friend, and he was like, "Are you okay?" Because he saw me visibly shaking as we were sitting down, and I was like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine." And then
that would be me.
And then once we got to the ground floor, I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom. I had to take a minute to myself as I relieved myself. And then I was like, he's like, are you okay? I'm like, never take me back up there again. Now you know my fear of heights. Do not test me again.
I was at a conference in Texas and was like kind of on a sort of kind of date with this guy, and like we were like, let's do the Ferris wheel. It's so romantic.
Oh no.
Girl, we got to the top of that thing. I was like, no, man,
Oh.
we are both terrified in our 40s of heights. So it's like we were both like white knuckling the little bar in there, and I was like, it's gonna spin around again. So
Yeah,
yeah.
see, I'm the opposite. I actually love heights, and I like I've jumped off a cliff before in Arizona. I love those rocket amusement park rides, like the slingshot that just like takes you off. So like that doesn't, yeah, the height aspect doesn't bother me, but I have so many questions and so much of like the layers of this film that is just spellbinding. Like this film is just, the psychological depth of it astounds me, and I think is why it is my number one Hitchcock film. And
Same.
yeah, it's like Vertigo and then The Birds, I would say, for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And I used to,
speaking of
yeah,
this-
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go. You were.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I used to think that Psycho was intriguing, but I actually find Psycho now a little dull. Like the shower scene is right what everyone remembers, but you really don't get the thriller aspects of Psycho until the end. It's like
yes,
beginning, end, and then you don't remember what's happening in between. But yeah,
I was gonna
that's
say
my hot take.
Yeah, for me, the most haunting moment of Psycho is the very end when you see Norman Bates, channeling the voice of his mother saying, like, oh, I'm not dangerous at all. Like, I won't even hurt this fly. And just the look in his eyes. I mean, it is haunting. But I would also say in Vertigo, the haunting moment is when, for me anyway, is Jimmy Stewart going up the steps of those cathedral before pillar moment,
the conclusion,
and like seeing the
spoiler moment,
visceral effects.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
trying not to spoil.
Like, Christian, is it easier to, because I know sometimes you like to go moment by moment, or like the background of the film, like how it even started, its
We could
adaptation.
do that. That's not a problem. We could do that. I'm game for that. But I wanted to ask before we go any further, since Andrew, we already know your introduction to classic cinema. I wanted to ask Travis and Mary what their introduction was, and how they got into it.
Mary, you can go first.
Do you mean into your podcast in general,
or
just
into
in
classic
cinema
as a genre?
Oh, again, I mean, I kind of felt like I grew up with that. My parents were very adamant that my sister and I be well-rounded as far as the films that we watched. So, like, we grew up watching Black and White, Bud Abbott, and Lou Costello, and just dying, laughing at their comedy and trying to convince our older cousins who were not, like, privy to this, that this was funny, and they all found it boring. And my sister and I are like, how do you find that? Like, what is wrong with you people? Like, so I mean, just classic cinema has always been in the zeitgeist, and me, again, not only just me, but like my sister's lives. Like, we were very much brought up to learn about the classics and to appreciate them, and in a way, whether our parents knew it or not, to like kind of understand that certain themes coexist consistently regardless of what generation you're a part of.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Yeah, Travis, what do you have to do? You have anything to
Yeah, I think a lot of those do carry forward. Growing up, kind of the same sort of story. Like I grew up with a lot of like we watched Young Frankenstein, a lot of classic movies. My dad was a big Western fan, so I like watched a lot of Western. I was literally almost named Clint Eastwood Roundtree, which is like the best thing ever. Clint Eastwood. But so that would have been fun. But my mom always loved, I mean, classic television and always liked like The Sound of Music and stuff like that. So I grew up with those films. And my grandfather, my dad's dad, loved movies, just like loved them, and like would just rattle, like he would tell us about what he watched and what actors and actresses were in it and like who they were, and he was like, oh, this was what it was in that movie, and he would just have these conversations, and like we'd never seen the movie, and it was these people that were like had been like long gone, but still famous actors and actresses. But it was just really funny. He was such a he just was at TCM. He watched that constantly and would stay up till like 3 o'clock in the morning watching these movies. But also like I've always like just enjoyed sort of the like the look and the glamour and the sort of style which I loved in this movie, like just the sets and everything and the wardrobe, like it's just amazing. I almost like wore, because I have a bunch of my grandfather's and great grandfather's old ties. I almost like wore that, but not tonight. It was too much. I had to do some other work before this. So, but yeah, that's sort of my background about it. But yeah.
Believe me, we're gonna get into the costumes because this film has many costumes that I want to replicate for myself. Most importantly, one of Kim Novak's suits that she has. And
Yes.
the green
Yes.
shawl that drapes to the floor. I'm like, I want that. I want
Me
that in my
too.
wardrobe, please.
The little
Along,
necklace.
along with that slinky black dress that crawls to the floor. I want that.
Okay.
And that, before we go any further, that spoiler alert, but that whole profile that we first get of her in the bar, like masterpiece.
Mhm.
Masterpiece. There's no other word for it. It's just I was rewatching it on the train and I'm like, damn, that's
Mhm.
that's really pretty. She's really pretty.
And with the wallpaper in there, which I love. That
And the
maroon
red
wallpaper.
Oh my God, yes. But let's get into the synopsis of this film before we go any further. So I'm just going to read from my thing that I took. So Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo has taken its place as the director's most spellbinding and deeply personal achievements. Silver screen legend James Stewart, aka George Bailey, reteams with the master of suspense to play a detective who falls in love with a tortured, beautiful woman, Kim Novak. He is hired to surveil. His following lapse into obsession and desperation is the stuff of cinematic legend. Using the elegant, dramatic San Francisco locations to haunting dramatic effect, this timeless masterwork raises the bar for noir thrillers to dizzying heights. There we go.
Agreed 1000%.
Mhm.
That critique is still valid. I would feel even today, honestly.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I like had done research about like, do you all know that it's actually based off of a French psychological novel from 1954?
I did not.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
either.
Could we get more info
I
on
did
that,
because
please?
you told me.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
So it's called D'entre les morts, and it means the living and the dead. And basically the plot is the same, except it's in Paris. And the Madeline character, she actually is rescued first from the Seine River, and then it's actually a lawyer, not a private investigator, who's following her. And the lawyer, who's named Roger, um, you know, tries to like figure out what to do after Madeline dies. And yes, Madeline does apparently die from a church bell tower the first time. Then he sees this woman again who he swears looks like Madeline. But when he discovers that no, this has been an imposter and actually is the mistress of the husband of Madeline. So here it's really confirmed that it was a mistress. And then the lawyer character, who we know as the private investigator in the film, actually strangles the imposter Madeline, so to speak. And then he actually surrenders to the police. So it's a darker, I would say, take
Yes.
of
I feel like
but
all tragic stories are in Paris, don't you think?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and when I think about the bell tower, I think it's no coincidence that we have Hunchback of Notre Dame and
Yeah.
that bell tower. And also the writers, it was like a pair who wrote this um novel. They actually based it off the Orpheus myth in ancient Greek mythology, right? So Orpheus he goes to the underworld to bring back Persephone.
Mhm.
And like, but I also have read and think that the film is more of a Pygmalion mythology, like the sculptor who falls in love with his own artwork of the ideal woman. In my opinion, I think it's more Pygmalion than the Orpheus myth, but
Mhm.
Mhm.
that's my take on it.
I feel like regardless though, her character is very much supposed to seem like the perfect woman of that time. Like maybe not the like the perfect woman to span all generations, but at least for that time, I feel like when she walks out into, when we first see her, I just always got the feeling, like, as much as I was just like, oh my god, she's gorgeous, I'm also like, she's fake.
Mhm.
She kind of was.
And
And
yeah.
for me too, it was like, so that sort of moment of beauty, and then, but also, and I know this is a question for later on, but like, it's a little weird. I mean, it's not weird. He becomes like obsessed with her about towards the end about like, you need to wear this, you need to
Mhm.
do your hair like this. And also I'm
Mhm.
like, this is a little like rapey, like at the, like, it's like,
Yes.
ugh,
Yeah.
uncomfortable, psychological. Yeah. So it's interesting how Hitchcock kind of twists that around and makes it very uncomfortable to me,
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like, do we call like I feel that imitation, or I don't know, Christian, if this is where you're going, but right, even just the opening sequence of the prelude, like not even before we see Scotty and what happens
Gives
with
me chills.
his tragedy, but I just love how it's the woman's face right away. And
Yes.
then you get
And it's her
this of
eyes.
the
It's just
eyes.
her
Yes.
eyes.
Yes.
And then it
Well, it's
zooms in
her
on
eyes.
her. Was it left or right eye that it zooms into?
I think I think to us it would be her right, I think.
Mhm.
I think so. And then
And then
that's
it
when we
goes into like
see
this gaze, like horrified
Mhm.
look, and then
Mhm.
the logo
we get a
happens.
vortex. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. Yeah.
And well, for me, it is supposed to mimic Vertigo. Like we're
Yeah.
already being hypnotized as the
Yeah.
viewer
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
questioning our sight and our perception. But our sight and our perception is questioned within the female body. And
Mhm.
Mhm.
like, I feel it really does solidify the male gaze, like this patriarchal-ish,
Oh,
that,
1000%.
yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
And like the film
You
critic
hit it.
Laura Mulvey
Mm-hmm.
wrote about the male gaze. And I think she turns to Hitchcock a lot, but I can see why. Again,
I mean,
I'm not saying that Hitchcock is affirming the gaze. Like maybe he is
right.
questioning. I do think he's questioning it in a way.
And I think that's fair for men to question that as a woman. Like, I personally, I never have felt any sort of like weird feminism or, anti-feminism from Hitchcock. If anything, I've always felt that his female characters were quite strong. And this is, no exception of that. It's strong in a different and maybe not necessarily an okay way to be, because again, she is confident in the fact that she is pretending to be someone else,
Mhm.
Mhm.
essentially. Like, she's confident in not being herself, which is an interesting thing to look at. But also, I don't feel like Hitchcock was using that aspect as a woman, like, and weaponizing that in this film. I think it just so happened to be a woman in this particular film, but it could have been a man if we easily switched it, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, as we're talking about that, I mean, I was just thinking with that whole opinion of woman's gaze, or the female gaze, that's um hypnotizing. It's just, it brings to mind, you just mentioned a lot of Hitchcock's women, and I think another example of feminism is Grace Kelly. I was gonna say Jean Kelly, Grace Kelly.
Grace Kelly, yes.
In Rear Window, she doesn't,
Yes.
she goes
Yeah.
into investigation mode. She's like, I'm gonna do this myself. If you don't want to do it, then I'm gonna do it. You know, and I
Mhm.
cannot wait to review that film. We are also very excited for that film too. But I feel like with Hitchcock, he puts his woman is star woman in very compromising situations.
Mhm.
And this one shows how far you can go if you put on a mask, whereas I think Kim Novak's character kind of does. If you
Mhm.
look at
Oh.
it from a
Yeah,
very realistic
sure.
point of view, when she's
Mhm.
trying to emulate somebody else that she isn't, we get this whole conversation in the beginning with Stuart and his compatriot, his is it his lawyer friend or his friend in the city. He's asking
Mhm.
to spy on his wife, to get the intel on his wife, and I'm like, I heard, I was watching on the train, and I said, he was talking about, just James Stewart was saying, put her in a loony bin, or put her in a home, or put her where someone else can take care of her. And it's like, are we in that whole age of having to feel like women are needed to be honed in, where they need to be like housewives? Are we in that era, like of the Bewitched era, where we have to be housewives every single day? I think that's where we're headed
Mhm.
in that aspect. Um,
Mhm.
Mm.
I find that
Well,
interesting. Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
oh no, I was just gonna say when I taught Vertigo the first time, it was just I have to shout out this. It was a summer class at Stony Brook, and it was just such a beautiful summer class because, like, when you teach a film class, usually you get 2 days a week. Like one day is when you watch the film, so like I would actually watch it with the students, like every film. Um, and before I did Vertigo, I had done Sunset Boulevard to talk about the noir. And then I was like building upon the noir with Vertigo into like psychological territory more. But um what was so beautiful is it was a night class and I just loved there's something magical about watching the films in class. And Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard, which I hope you have Sunset Boulevard on your list eventually, Chris. I love to be part of that. And it's like talk about a woman who gets a lot of screen time. It reminds me of what we're getting with Madeline, like this very layered psychological figure. And what I think they both have in common is the art of acting. But that's like when we're even talking, is Judy, who, right, we find out is actually imitating, is she imitating? Is she acting? Is it a decoy? Is it a forgery? I mean, there's so many ways to describe this. And I do really like the acting narrative because guess who else is acting? Scotty. Scotty's not a private investigator anymore. He's a faux private investigator. Like he's acting, Midge in a way is acting when she's creating the brasserie designs. Like she doesn't work for a couture house. I don't think she does. Like, and so everyone in a way, Gavin is acting because he doesn't love his wife, and I think he is having an affair. I don't know if it's with Judy, like what the novel does, but he's having an affair with some woman, probably, most likely, because he's fleeing the country. I don't know why, but it's probably because of a woman. And yeah, so acting and I love that it's in San Francisco. Like I was talking about it with Travis before we hit record, Christian, that like I recognize so many of those sites because this film was actually in San Francisco, which in 1958, like Sunset Boulevard, I don't even think was filmed in Hollywood, like was actually around Los Angeles. It was all a soundstage. So I love that you can actually see that they're in the sites. And yeah, San Francisco, I thought was a really interesting that it would be really different if Vertigo was in Los Angeles. I don't think it would have worked if it was
Or
in
even
Los
New York.
Angeles.
Or even New York.
Yeah, I don't.
Different, radically, I feel like.
Yeah, like if she fell in the Hudson River, I mean,
You know,
not as scenic, probably not as pretty.
fish her out, you know. But,
Yeah, but like, why is it San Francisco? That was a question just I had. I thought, like, there's something really, even when I was in the city for the first time last year. There's noir aspects of San Francisco,
yeah.
like the hills, and like it just feels like I actually feel it's more of a cinematic city than Hollywood ever is. Like, I mean, Hollywood is pretty with the beaches, like Los Angeles has beaches and it's pretty, but it doesn't have that Golden Gate Bridge and like all of these different the house designs. It's just such they're two totally different locations. And yeah, I actually stayed right where the department store was. Um, I was like literally a block away in the Westin in San Francisco last year. It's by Union Square, or it's in Union Square. Um, but yeah, I would like to live in San Francisco over Los Angeles if I had the chance. So yeah, but it's such a noir. That city is
Mhm.
really, yeah, it's a magical place and inspiring. I think so.
Going back to what you said earlier too, Andrew, about it being based on a French novel. Um, I watched it with someone who had been to France and who studies French and all this stuff. And a lot of the like as we're watching, he's like, "Oh, that's French. Oh, that's French. Oh, that's like it was like a lot of those features like came out because of, and I know that it's not like a French, you know, chapel that they're at, but you know, a lot of that stuff resonated with him as he watched it as well too. So that was kind of really fascinating, I thought. Just the staging of that. And also we were like, James Stewart gay? I don't know, maybe not, but that's a whole thing. That's a different section. But what I wanted to talk about too, that you brought up as well, Andrew, is like Midge is his friend, right? That he was engaged to for like half a minute, right? That's her name. Okay.
Yeah, 3 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I want to know more about her
Mhm.
because like what is like I'm like really like she painted that picture of her like what? That's a little crazy like out there. So I'm really fascinated a little bit more by her character, what's going on there. I just want to hear more about it, but because
And
she's
she
kind of
kind
a
of
side.
becomes a stalker in a way
Yes,
of
yes, totally,
watching them. Again, voyeurism is
totally.
Hitchcockian. I mean,
Yes,
Christian brought up
He
Grace
loves
Kelly
it.
in her window. We
Yeah.
see her undressing in the McKittrick Hotel. Like,
yes.
um, but again, I don't think it's because a question I had like rewatching was, okay, Andrew, pay attention to how is this a sexual objectification? And I really don't think it is. Like, I
Mhm.
want to say yes, blame the patriarchy. Like
I
he is
agree.
Scotty and Gavin are just trying to, well, Gavin definitely, I think, is our patriarchal controller sexually.
100%.
I think he's the villain. I mean, he's a murderer, first of all. He strangles
First of
his
all,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
yeah. First
murdered
off,
his wife.
I mean,
So
yeah,
breaks her neck is what I read. Like she's already dead when they're at the bell tower.
yeah.
Like you have to remember, how did he bring, not to get into the gory details, but he's not just
And
bringing his wife up there and then throwing her
and
off the
I wonder if she was even dead at that point or if she had been dead sooner.
No, I think she
To
was
be
dead soon.
honest with you, because the fact that he just goes so hard to have someone pretend to be his wife. Like, honestly, I felt that. And even as a child at 6 years old, because I watched way too much Scooby Doo, I was just like, no, this woman has been dead. She has been dead for some time. He is just trying to cover this up in a way where he can make it look like his wife died in this particular moment, when in reality, it's already been a thing. And
I
he's
love
just trying to cover it up.
the Scooby-Doo take on this film. I love because he's the angry janitor down in the basement. Like I'm here for it.
Yeah.
We
Well, and I know we're
Right.
on a queer podcast, and can we just say that they're Eskimo brothers in a way? Like, if I have anything
Yes,
sexual to say, it's that these men are sharing. First of all,
for
Scotty
sure.
is like, Scotty's literally thinking that he's cheating with his friend, like on his friend's wife. I don't know if I worded that right, but
Yes.
he's basically having an affair with his
Yeah.
friend's wife.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
I'm like,
1000%.
Yes.
Which is the
totally.
whole like moral conundrum of this whole thing, because you're like, wait a minute, her husband, like, she's already dead. She's not even a real person. Like, she's not a living person at this point. Like, she so is fake, but like, he's bringing this person in and he's trying to basically manipulate the situation to be like, hey, you need to make this dude fall in love with you. So when your supposed death happens, it looks realistic and we have a witness to it.
mhm.
So, but
It's
also
basically
go ahead.
no, go
That
Travis.
kiss in front of those waves, most romantic thing ever. Like
Mhm.
that is like old Hollywood fabulousness. And I was like, okay,
Yes.
like yes.
I know
But
it's like the Casablanca scene with the helicopter, right?
yes, it's
Yeah.
better, I think. But, you know,
Yeah, I know. I think it's better too. But
I like the beach. I don't
yeah,
like
no.
beach.
But did Gavin actually have an affair with Judy? Like, I was trying to think, how did he even meet this woman? Like, who's not even an actress? Like, she works at a department store. I'm like, how did they meet? Like, was she an escort?
It
That's
could
what I
have
had in
been
my
that
mind.
I mean, that wouldn't be too far fetched, just for the fact that she was so willing to go through with this
Yeah,
plan.
yeah.
Like,
True.
because the whole, I mean, again, as someone who is very much involved in true crime, like, I go, okay, wait a minute. There's no way this person did not know about this situation. There is no scenario that I can concoct that
Mhm.
she would be completely ignorant to it. So, and I always question, was she getting paid by him to be her? Like, I felt like that was a thing. And again, I could be completely wrong, but I felt like that was something like where he was just like, I see you. Can you be persuaded at a dollar amount to pretend to be my dead wife? And I don't think necessarily she knew to the extent as to what she was getting involved in. I think she had an inkling. Like, I don't consider her innocent entirely at all. I think to some extent she knew that this was fucked up and like, oh, I'm sorry. Am I allowed to curse on this podcast? Okay.
Oh, Christian's saying okay.
I was like, I have another word prepared if I need to. But yeah, like, it just seems like such a messed up situation to agree to without thinking ahead. Like, I can't imagine a person not being like, this is really fishy. Like, this scenario you're paying me for to be your, you're asking me to be your
Well,
wife, essentially.
and not even paying, right? But remember when like she's living in a hotel, but it kind of seems like she's like Judy eventually we
Yes.
find out is almost a boarder, and
Yes.
like you can tell
Yes.
she's lower middle class,
Mm.
like bordering working class. And what I found fascinating is Scotty literally like enters into her room and she says, I know what men want to do with me. Like, that to me is where I say, okay, maybe this is the hint of how Gavin met her, because
Yes. Yes.
it wasn't out of the realm of possibility for her. It
That's a
wasn't
good
like she
point.
said, oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
Mhm.
slams the door. Again, I don't think it's right that Scotty enters. We have to question that. But yeah, I don't know. There's so many analyses that I had read to teach this, of like reading Scotty with his cane, like his cane. If we want to take it into a Freudian, which Hitchcock loves to do
Mhm.
with Freud, the cane resembles his penis and it's phallic, and
Mhm.
like he's impotent somehow and isn't a sexual powerful figure. I mean, to me, that's very ableist, like against disabled people, because like
Mhm.
this is a disability. I wouldn't just say like, oh, that's his phallic power is the cane. But
Yeah.
I don't think he's lost his seductiveness because Midge is still finding him really attractive. I don't even know if he knows what his sexual energy is. Like supposedly they're supposed to have sex during that green screen moment, like right when she has
Mhm.
now made the full transformation
Yes.
back to Madeline. He gets the whole hair dye job,
Yeah.
which is still fascinating when
I,
he's like, no, it has to be this color of hair. Do
yes.
you know what I mean?
It
It turned up.
triggered
Yeah.
abusive female
Yes.
relationships for me,
Yes.
but
Yes.
also at the same time, like, and I hate to even be like, oh, and at the same time, I'm like, I also understand that this dude, like, for me, in an empathetic sense, I'm like, he went through something extremely traumatic to some extent. I don't find his reaction in the fact of, oh, I found someone who looks like her and I'm trying to make her look like that person, so wrong. But at the same time, like with Hitchcock, just how he does it, like, that this is an underlying thing where it's deep down, that Jimmy Stewart's character knows that something isn't right and he's just trying to put the pieces together in that scene, or at least to me that's what I got. As much as it hurt, like, I feel like it's very uncomfortable to watch
So
emotionally. There's so many things you feel watching that. So
it's the scene right before where she like has the breakdown and kind of wants to tell
Mhm.
him really bad. So to me also, so yeah, abuse, but also like, is he bribing her? Is he like, does he have something that he knows that I'm talking about Gavin knows against her that he's holding against her will? That if she says something that it's gonna like could kill her or something, which like ultimately it doesn't
Yeah.
matter anyway. But like that scene, it was really like wrenching too to see her. She did a great job acting in both in the movie in like as an actress. So about that, but that's where I really felt like the strife, like something else is deeper here than just like her playing for the Scavin Man, you know. So that's where I
Mhm.
wanted to know more, there.
Yeah.
So
And it seems like Judy is a social climber in the sense
yeah,
of not
yeah,
blaming her, but saying she
Mhm.
wants to do better. I mean, she's so good at this facade of upper class
yeah.
lifestyle, like getting in the
Mhm.
car from this luxurious apartment. Like she knows how to act the part. And that's
Mhm.
where it's like, I think she wants to be an actress. Like, I
Mhm.
think that is her profession of choice. Um, which is why I think actually San Francisco now does make sense because she's not in the heart of acting. Like she's in a city that's outside the industry. So like already she's gonna have a hard time making it. So now she's in a department store.
Mhm.
And like, yeah, maybe Gavin has the gossip and blackmail about her actual profession of money, which could be sexual favors. I mean,
Yeah.
like in that time period, that is not out of the norm. Like we even know that with Marilyn Monroe's
Mhm.
life and how much she was approached to do that for roles and like had to fight against this patriarchal system. But
Mhm.
oh
And
yeah,
to
there's
be
so
fair, I
much.
always felt like that he had some sort of, like, I always felt like she was bound to pretend to be his wife, like that there was some sort of unspoken bond or agreement that we as the audience are not privy of, like some past thing that has gone between them, that she's agreed to do this. Because for me personally, like, seeing her and her character throughout the film as the person who she's supposed to, like, quote unquote, like really be, I don't feel like that she does not feel guilt about what she's doing. And like, I feel like she's a way more genuine person. I think she's just someone who got into a situation way over her head with
Mhm.
someone who has sadly way more power over her than she should, and then just agreed to, go along with this plan. And then, of course, as we know, it implodes in her face because she does wind up falling in love with Jimmy Stewart, and in the end he wind up does finding her, and the whole situation unravels of him knowing who she was pretending to be.
She falls really hard. Sorry, I had to make
Yeah.
that. It's awful.
Yeah, but you're right. She
Mhm.
falls really
It
hard.
hurts. It
Like,
hurts.
Well, she died, like
well, and she
literally
falls really
fell.
like, and not only right does she fall really hard, but also she's falling for the Carlotta like painting
Yes.
because she still wears
Yes.
the necklace.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
And
Yes.
right, but
Yeah.
again, this is where this is not Parisian in the sense of we get the whole Mexican American aspect. Like, I need to bring up just David Grevin, my friend, who's a Hitchcock scholar. Like, he talks a lot about the racialization of in his article, The Dark Side of Blondness, Vertigo and Race. He talks about how important it is that it is the Mission where the bell tower is, which is 90 miles south of San Francisco. Like, this is an hour and like 20-minute journey,
Mhm.
an hour and a half. It'd be like going from New York City, from Times Square, I don't know, down to like Atlantic City. Like, this is not, it's close, but you would question, wait, why are we like she even says this is a long drive, but he's still there. I mean, we
A
could
long
argue, I
drive, but I
guess.
also feel like she knows.
Mhm.
Like she's not like throughout the entire time of this whole like Jimmy Stewart discovering that she is or has played some version of this dude's wife that he fell in love with.
Mhm.
Like I always felt that at some point, like she knew she fucked up. Like there were moments where you could see it on her face where you were just like, you knew she was caught up in something bigger than she could get herself out of. And that she was just trying to continue this as far as she could, despite the fact that she did not agree with it, which also, as a woman, was like heart wrenching again at 5 and 6 years old to watch and being just like, no, you are a woman. You should do what you be able to want to do, and it should be fine, and this shouldn't be bad. But, of course, in this film, it is. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, I don't know. Christian, I don't want to like, take over the conversation.
No, you're good. Oh goodness, I'm sorry. I think we should also get into the Q&A portion of the podcast as well, since we already talked a lot about our views on it, our differentiating views. I wanted to ask each of you individually, what do you think, since we've already basically discussed what appeals to you about this film, we were just discussing that, obviously, I don't want to go back into that. But what do you think individually, what do you think are the queer aspects of the film, if there are any? You guys found any? We can go one by one and then end with me.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of already brought up, I do think there's something happening homoerotically between Gavin and Scotty in the sense of how eager Scotty is to please Gavin. And it's not really, yeah, I said Eskimo twins. Travis is reminding me, but, or brothers, Eskimo brothers is the phrase. And well, Gavin is getting a lot of pleasure out of knowing that Scotty's falling for Judy, like for the fake Madeline. And I think that it's a triangulation. Like it's this um common theme, common trope of two men vying for this, like vying for a woman's attention, but in this case, Gavin is definitely getting um pleasure, but it's sadistic to me. It's very, oh, I've got Scotty in the palm of my hands. Like he's falling for this woman. I've done it. And yeah, pretty queer. A pretty queer relationship between them.
I would agree with that. I love the idea of the Eskimo brothers and like the sharing of the woman too, which I find really interesting, and also just I mean, they're putting a corset on him in the beginning, right? And it starts out, and I'm like, girl, gay. But like, so, which I found really interesting. Um, and just from that outset, I felt like it was almost and like I never really watched a lot of the show, but I felt like it was a very like big Will and Grace moment, like at the beginning with Midge, and they're kind of had that banter back and forth, but he was engaged to it and all that type of thing. But like I don't know, something about that just felt odd and kind of queer, like for some reason unsettling to me. Um uh but I think, with the rest of the film, there were moments that were like, is he? And I think it was just like the way the film was produced. But also just like for me, I mean, it's not even camp, it's just Hollywood like glamour in that film, which I loved. And I think that we as queer people pick up and love as well too. Um, so that's what kind of struck out to me as it, but then we starting strong with the corset moment. I'm like, okay, I'm putting on my binoculars now to look for this stuff. So, but yeah, that was it for me.
For me, kind of looking back on this film and rewatching and taking in the queer concept of it and everything, I kind of took like Melanie's character is kind of like queer in a way, because for the fact that she's pretending to be, and in a very broad terms, she's pretending to be someone she's not. And she becomes very comfortable, I would argue, as someone who she isn't, until when she meets Jimmy Stewart as herself, not as, this other person. So, and then during that time, she finds herself trying to conform to what he feels she should be. And you can see that conflict within her of wanting to be like, no, like, hey, I pretended to be this person. Like, I'm the one who was actively, pursuing you and having these feelings and things like that. And just being in a position where she can't, like, just literally, like, if I do, then I'm admitting to the fact that I have been involved in someone else's murder because I'm actively involved in the cover up.
It's a female homo, but right, Mary, you really made me see this differently. Like what hasn't been addressed is the female homoerotic aspect, which is literally not only is she acting as Madeline, but she's getting off on her performance, playing a woman.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're supposed to assume she had seen the real Madeline. That's where, right, there's so much.
I haven't felt that. I felt that as well. I
don't think
like
she
it was
sees
very
her.
much of,
Well,
like, I honestly
until
felt
the
like
death
it was,
scene.
yeah. Like I felt like it was very much a business transaction up until the death.
And I don't think she
Or
thinks
the
that Madeline is going
reveal
to
of
be
the death.
killed.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree
I
as
think-
well. I think she is
Yeah.
just as shocked as
Well,
Jimmy
which is why
Carter's
she screams,
character in
right?
that.
Isn't that why she screams? Is because she didn't assume there would be a woman there.
She had no clue.
Yeah, I mean, I think the instructions were run up the bell tower. Like, I mean, it was basically a play. It's stage direction. Run up the bell tower. And then she's like, okay, I'll do it. And then,
she was
that
instructed
scream,
to
I
be
mean, I know
a character,
And I'm
that
sure-
would fit into some ways kind of a, anti-feminist view of like, oh yeah, she's a woman, she can seduce this man because I'm telling her to, and create. So, because I do believe that this whole relationship between them two was a form of manipulation on, I forget Gabriel, his name, Gavin, on Gavin's part. Like, I feel like he totally calculated that out and was like, yes, you need to make sure that this person specifically feels a certain way about you, and to just be manipulated that way. And eventually, as we know, like, he finds her eventually at the end.
Well, she's the true seductress. She's like Damn Yankees, the Lola character in the Broadway musical. Like it's well, that's why the color scheme is so important, right? Because red and green both represent in a similar way the devil. Like
Oh
I was
yeah.
actually jotting this down. The red could be the devil, and the green is the snake in the garden of Eden.
That's why
And
they're complementary colors.
yeah, but also green is envy,
Envy, yeah, that's
and
what I was
red
thinking.
is passion, which could represent the sexual climax in the moment of the green coming together of their like sexual embrace. But
Mhm.
but no, this homoerotic aspect with her, I mean, you know, I know we haven't heard from Christian, but I just like with what you said, Mary, you're having me really rethink this whole aspect of Judy because, like, if we think that she hasn't seen Madeline until the death scene in the bell tower, that could also be part of why she wants to stop acting. Like, she was fine being another woman when she didn't know who the actual replica was of the woman, but now that she's seen the replica's died. Like the replica's the real
Or
woman,
has
but
been dead. We
or
don't
has been
know.
dead, but now she doesn't want to be playing anymore in the acting of a, you know, actual woman, like a real woman. She was
And
fine when it was,
herself.
yes,
Mhm.
and herself. She was okay with a character, but this isn't a character anymore. This is an actual identifiable body who's now fallen from a bell tower.
Right. It's like having a face to the name, finally. You're like, holy shit. You know?
Well, and truly traumatic.
Yeah. In this instance, I mean,
Oh,
one of the moments I will always remember in Hitchcock history as far as I have seen it.
So for me too, Mary, this is kind of a departing from the sort of same-sex sort of attraction thing, but like the idea of passing, is that a thing we can
Yes.
hear? And like how passing works and doesn't work in certain ways, and like how people are successful in it and some people are not successful in it. Like, so, you know, James Stewart stays as the private detective most of like pretty much the whole movie, where
Yeah.
she struggles with her identity as passing as this person. Gavin is just asshole Gavin. So, you know, like,
Asshole
so,
Gavin.
yeah, fucking asshole Gavin. But killing all these women. But yeah, so I think, you know, that could even be, you know, worked out in what you're saying about it as well, too, for sure.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to pull too much on that idea, but I think, you know, it's a
No,
possibility.
but it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know.
and we never actually see the real Madeline.
Mm-mm.
No, we
don't even
never
know.
do. And
We don't know how close of a match this is. You know, it's like a stunt double. She is a stunt double. I mean, you know, sometimes in stunt doubles, they are really far afield from how the actual actor looks.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, but I needed to hear Christian.
I
the
also
queerness.
feel like in this film,
Sorry.
like the notion that like Jimmy Stewart's character hadn't seen this person's wife in such a long time was a thing. Like I feel like it was like they had known each other before, but like also that's why this thing was feasible, which again makes it just so much more sinister as far as his plan overall of, you know, hey, I killed my wife. What's the best way to make sure I can cover this up? And I feel like, again, like what I kind of feel like just gets overlooked is like the fact that Jimmy Stewart falls in love with her. Like I feel like that is supposed to be our scapegoat, but at the same time, I also feel like that is Gabriel's plan from the beginning to be like, hey, yeah, no. While she's dead, like I want to divert the attention over here and have this be a thing so that, you know, when it does come out that she's dead, no one is suspicious. Which again, very manipulative, very psychologically brutal when you think of all the repercussions that has taken.
Bad vibes from the beginning, like
yeah, just from the
builder, like
get-go.
famous, like, you know, I don't know. Although I love that office, let me tell you, like I wish that was my academic office. It's glorious, but like not with him in it.
No.
Like
He can get lost.
Get out of here, asshole Gavin.
and Midge's studio or art or house, I don't know, or her
Yes.
apartment.
Yes.
I'd love to
Yes.
be there.
Right?
Right. Oh my god.
Maybe she'll put you in a little dress too, Andrew, you know, like in a she did.
Yeah. I think she has a lot of money, Midge. That's what
I
I
think
was
so
getting
too.
from this.
Yeah.
I think she does, and she hides it well. Like
Yes.
she's one of those people who's very cautious about her money and whatnot. But yeah, no, I don't know. I hate almost the feeling of knowing what happens in this movie, and that I don't hate her for her role in all of it. Like
I want
I
to know more about
don't.
her. I want her to have a spinoff, like
Yes.
the life of Midge, and like
Yes.
she's like those making those cocktails and everything too. I'm like, girl, you are getting after it.
Right?
It looks so sad when he had to leave his in that one scene. He's like, I just
Well, and is it just me or did the glasses automatically like talk about gender stereotyping? It's like, oh, she's
Right.
nerdy, she's not seductive. I'm like, okay,
yes.
it doesn't work that
Meanwhile-
way. But she is kind of our Velma from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah,
Like our
Yes.
that was what I was gonna say. Yeah, she
and I
totally
actually
is.
do get some queer tones from her,
Yes.
just like I
Yes.
get from him.
And her
Scott.
intelligence shows through too. Like I never felt like she was like that anyone was trying to make her seem like she was less than intelligent.
And like, is she fucking with him with the painting?
Right.
Like, are you kidding me? Like, you're obsessed with this woman. Like, here you go, let me paint her. Like,
Yeah. Well, I think she just thinks it's a joke. And
oh,
obviously
100%. Yeah.
isn't understanding that no, he psychologically is getting played, but also he is buying his what would you call that? A figment of your imagination. He's having delusion of grandeur.
I was gonna say, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. This isn't just, something that can be joked about and is a satire.
And again, I have to say, like, I feel like a lot of people try to paint Hitchcock as sexist, and maybe he might be. I mean, I could just be ignorant and not fact checking everything, but also I feel like he has these very strong roles for women. Like in this specifically, like there are times where I specifically remember her just having a look in her eyes of just being like, oh fuck, does he know?
Mm-hmm.
Like there are a few times throughout the film where she has visceral reactions to certain things he does or says or requests that you go, okay, clearly she knows what's up. Like she is not stupid, which I feel like very much at the time people would rather have you believe that, or that it was a lucky guess. So, again, I just appreciated that. Like, again, I feel like there are some instances where, okay, maybe he maybe not on a professional level was great to women, but as far as the works of art that he churned out, I feel like very much had a positive effect on how women were seen in, not only just film, but in, murder mystery, sci-fi type of films in general, because he allowed them to have that serious space.
Yeah. Well, this is why David Grevin's essay is so interesting, is because his take on the blonde women is, I agree with him in the sense that it's this idolized vision of American womanhood of the blonde. And that, especially because Carlotta is a Spanish name, Carlotta Valdez, but again, she has blonde hair. So like she's passing as this woman figure. And I that's where with Hitchcock, I tend to think he's subverting the blonde figure, and in a way kind of does what Marilyn did with playing into the trope of, okay, I have blonde hair, but there's layers of intelligence and nuance, and I'm going to use that against the male gaze. Like, you want to play this game? I'll play this Playboy game and own my sexuality. And like, to me, Judy's more empowering. And yes, this I think is a problem, but I think she's more intellectually stimulated when she is blonde. Like, I
Mhm.
find that her layers of psychology, you see it in her facial expressions,
Mhm.
are more layered when she's blonde. And then when she goes back to her brown hair color, she kind of, her light dims.
It's almost like she is going back into fitting into the role that society wanted her to be in, which again, I always felt like with this film was so interesting because again, like up until this point, like I had not seen many film, classic or otherwise, where a female was like, oh shit, I've really done wrong and I need to consider my next steps logically,
Mhm.
you know? And again, I'm not saying that as a general, people should have seen that or whatever, but like for me personally, that's just what I grew up with. So kind of seeing these characters and kind of like trying to break away from that, but yet also not excusing that these stereotypes exist was very kind of just like eye opening and just being like, oh, okay, this is a thing that happens, but it doesn't, at the same time, like it doesn't negate the power that their performances have.
I had to go look up Dumb Blonde by Dolly Parton because it's like, because this dumb blonde ain't nobody's fool. I
Yes.
think that's how this works. Like, right? She knows what she's
Mm-hmm.
doing, but she may be forced to do what she's doing, but she also feels a sense of regret, I feel like, and wants to come forward
Mm-hmm.
several times. And, again, I'm just curious as to what Gavin is holding over her to keep her from doing,
Mhm.
from doing that.
Part of me wonders if it's just money.
Could be, could be.
Mm. Well,
Like, I
true.
mean,
Like
and
he was allowing her to live. Well, he was also allowing her to live a lavish lifestyle.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. With those dresses in that
Yeah.
apartment.
Mm.
Well,
Yes.
because she's the one. Well, I always question, is he the one who is Gavin commanding her to go back with the letter to Scotty, or is this like her free will? Because I will say there are moments where her acting, she wasn't going to become an Oscar nominated actress,
Mm-hmm.
Judy, because like the scene with the Golden Gate Bridge and her going in the water is
Yeah.
bad acting on purpose by Kim Novak, like
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
showing that there's holes in her imitation. And I
Mhm.
love that you see, okay, she's a little over the top, and this is on purpose.
Hmm.
But wait, Christian, what was your queer take? Because I'm like dying to know it.
Yes.
I mean, for me, it's there's so many moments, but the one thing that stands out to me, if I can recall it, everyone has said it here, is that moment when we see uh Kim Novak's character, Madeline, retransformed when she comes out with that green smoke coming out of the
Hmm.
bathroom, and it's like, what is happening here? There's something that's going on, and I don't know what it is, but it's very evocative, and it's very like in your face, and it's just like it's pulling
Hmm.
you in, and it's just, it's that whole Hitchcockian trope of, yes, blondes do know better, but it's like, I feel like with Judy, she's a little bit more exotic. And I love that whole transition where we don't know if that's really Madeline playing dress up, or if it's just someone else reincarnated. And
Hmm.
it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and
And
it plays into that whole
Mhm.
trope of reincarnation, and someone just being so transfixed with one specific person, where it takes on a whole thing of its own. It takes on its own mind. And with James Stewart's character, he goes into this obsession mode, and he sees her everywhere. And
Hmm.
it's not healthy, and
Mhm.
it's certainly not healthy, but it comes to a point where that whole montage of him choosing her outfits and choosing how her hair is
Mhm.
it's very debilitating. It was very debilitating to watch. It was just very
Agreed.
like it just made me feel so like this is like multiple, like we've all said that this is the classic tropes of an abusive relationship where
Mhm.
the woman has no say. It's all in the male perspective. No, you're going no, you're going to wear this, honey. You know, it's that whole 50s
Mhm.
husband, like you have to do what I say or else you're out, you know. You know, a couple is having an argument in the car. Oh, we'll have none of that. We'll have none of that. We're just driving home.
Yeah, Christian, I wrote down there's that
Yes.
line. There's that line about if I do what you where Judy
Yes.
says, if I do what you tell me, will you love me?
Yes.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
thought,
yes.
oh,
Oh,
now
and it's one of
Yeah.
those moments that hurts my heart to hear
Yeah.
her
because I'm
even
like, there's
fucking
Scotty
say
has
that.
well, and Scotty has redemptive qualities before that, but then
Yes.
I'm thinking, okay, now it's the little like now he's entering into like what you said, Christian. This is the abuser. This is um his fancies and his imagination is now the
Mhm.
controlling man. And
Mhm.
And
no one's
as a
stopping him.
woman,
Eyes.
Like no
You
one
can see in her
stops him.
eyes as she's no, nobody does. And that's what the weird thing is that what you
Mhm.
can see in her eyes as she's getting her hair dyed, she's like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why am
yes,
I
I'm
doing
so
this?
glad you're bringing this
As
up.
she's like, you know, we see the woman working the blonde woman working on her hair, and it just makes me cry because it's just, you know, it's just, I'm sorry if I've had a long
No,
day.
please absolutely have that emotional moment because that was something as a kid I also had like a visceral like emotional reaction to seeing someone who was blatantly changing themselves for someone else even though we all knew in that moment that it was completely fucking wrong.
Mhm.
And
It
just
is.
like
It is.
and
And
I
it's
feel like actresses especially from that moment like I feel like and nothing against the amazing actors who got their accolades at that time but I feel like the women who really like in this particular film should have gotten their accolades like
Mhm.
yes.
the performances in this film by the women are absolutely astonishing.
Mhm.
Like and again I mean not just for I mean the men obviously as well but you know in this time of or this type of film and in this type of situation and
Oh
the
my
type of
God. I had no
climate
idea. It didn't even get acting. It only got a two nominations, one for art direction and one for best sound.
bullshit.
That's actually
Wow.
wild.
It deserves
Okay.
all
Dang.
of the accolades.
As it's
I
like
want to
one of
know
his
who
most
won in
famous.
1958. I have to look that up. Okay. I'll do
Right?
my little Google search. But I'm curious, like what film won in 1958? Because it might be a film that we don't even watch now, because that's what usually happens. Um,
That hurts my heart that it wasn't fully recognized in its
yeah,
time
the
because it should have been.
it was The Three Faces of Eve. Oh, that's interesting. Joan
Hmm.
Woodward won Best Actress. Um,
Not
and
wrong.
then and I've never seen that movie. Um, and then the best, oh my gosh, where is it? Yeah, Hitchcock wasn't nominated. Instead, it was David Lean, The Bridge on the River Kwai. Oh, that
Hmm.
was when 12 Angry Men. That was out the
Oh,
same year.
really?
Okay, that's a really good film. In my
I need to
opinion.
see that still. I haven't
Um,
seen it.
but best film, best film. Oh, The Bridge on the River Kwai. Never seen that.
Mm-mm.
Hmm. Well,
Personally, I feel like that like Vertigo deserves all of the accolades it possibly could have. I mean,
well, I
again,
think
from
it.
a psychological standpoint, I feel like at
Well, the
its
Oscars
time
never value.
specifically.
The Oscars never value
I know.
ingenuity and experimentation, in my
It's
opinion.
infuriating because like when I think of Vertigo, I think of the same like visceral reaction that I have watching the end of Psycho
Mhm.
when Norman Bates is in, you know, whatever interviewing room and he's obviously delusional, and you can hear him as his mother saying like, oh no, I won't even kill a fly and blah 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 blah. Like
There
Well,
was
wait,
that
and then
like we had to like gasp at the end of the movie, like like what like
Mhm.
she just
But I feel like Vertigo has similar moments
yeah,
yeah,
but
oh
in it
totally.
with that,
No,
like,
that's what I'm talking about with Vertigo. Yeah,
yeah.
that moment at the end.
well, we didn't even talk about the like possession storyline, the whole haunting. Like there
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
this
yeah.
ghost, there's a ghost story, and like Christian, I'm so glad you brought it up about. I think it's one of the best frames of the film, which is when she looks like a ghost.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Judy now as the Madeline, like not she's supposed to not know she looks like Madeline because she's Judy
Mhm.
and like still pretending that she wasn't playing this part. But
Mhm.
yeah, she looks like a ghost. And then the nun, that's where I always think the nun at the end, is it that she thought it was Carlotta in her own buying the delusion and she's been so psychologically haunted? Like
Mhm.
I do. I think she thinks the nun is either Madeline, like
Mhm.
the Edgar Allan Poe story that followed the House of Usher, where the sister's name is Madeline. And
Mhm.
right, the sister in the Fall of the House of Usher comes back from the dead to kill Roderick. And I feel like it's almost like that, where
Mhm.
Madeline, well, also the French loved Edgar Allan Poe more than the Americans at this time. So I do think that's where the name Madeline might come from. Um, it's from Poe, but yeah, I think is it that does Judy think that the nun is Madeline coming to get her, the wife, because she is guilty? Like she thinks she's guilty of the murder? Or is it that she thinks it's Carlotta who's haunting her? I don't know. It's
Or it could be both.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
I
but
was
I
know.
don't
just,
think she
yeah.
thinks it's a nun. Because I think if she
No,
thought it was
yeah,
a nun, she
no.
wouldn't have
I was
pulled it.
No.
surprised it was a nun. I
Mhm.
really wanted it to be
Yeah.
something else, but it was a nun. It's fine.
It is definitely some sort of whatever she has like preconceived notion about nuns, like it
Yeah.
is there happening right and I feel like it is supposed to be uncomfortable for that reason.
Mhm.
Like you are supposed to know that this is not something like that, the nun interaction is supposed to be uncomfortable, and I think that's supposed to emulate the fact that in a way decisions that were made were unholy, like, and just to kind of you know pursue that religious aspect of it, whether or not I feel like it's important or relevant for the
Mhm.
story, but I feel like it was an element that was there that they decided to continue with.
Oh yeah. Well, and to have a murder happen on religious grounds
Oh,
is
for sure.
it's like having sex in a church. I mean,
Quite
like the
literally.
old, I mean, I'm very sex positive. So I don't think that that's a scandal, but like a murder is a different story. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, it is. It's that like taboo, like ultimate taboo. And um, yeah, I'm still questioning, and I think I'd have to ponder more the possession narrative. I'm
Mhm.
not sure.
Mhm.
Like this whole ghost story, even Gavin creating this narrative about Carlotta,
Mhm.
like again, it's a historical person, but and it has to do with like the founding of San Francisco with the mission and like how it's part of the Mexican American Revolution. Like there's so many layers to it, but at the end of
Yeah.
the day, why does Gavin have to go through with this whole concoction of a possession as a shield for the death of his wife? Like, I
Because
mean,
clearly his wife is a problem.
well, yeah, but like, I don't you think there is an easier method, like to be
Oh,
honest, than a
for
possession?
sure. For sure. And I think that this, like, when Vertigo kind of tries to be like, hey, yeah, maybe don't do that. But I do feel that where it's kind of just like this insane situation that he just tries to rationalize as if it's normal and
Yeah.
convinces other people, which is clearly another problem about him and his narcissistic reach and how he can convince other people to believe his narrative.
Mhm.
But again, like, I don't know. Again, remembering this film and having rewatched it, like, I just always felt that like he had this sort of societal power over these people, as if like I felt like he was friends with Jimmy Stewart's character, but it was because like, oh, we've had like a long-standing friendship in the past, so like it's acceptable.
Mhm.
But otherwise, being your friend would not be okay in my social circle. So in that respect, like I feel like everything is very calculated.
Yeah. Well, and I know Christian will love this illusion, but maybe because I'm so in the Paris literature right now, like thinking of where this is deriving from, but it does remind me of the Phantom of the Opera in the sense that that's a French novel of the 19th century, and um, I taught it in my Broadway musical class, the Gaston Leroux novel, and it has that same where the psychology is mixed with the gothic. Like that's what I think Vertigo does so well
Mhm.
is the gothic is the psychology. Like you can't break them apart. And like the Phantom of the Opera,
1000%.
the Phantom in the novel isn't really seen a lot. So like it could be a figment of the imagination. It could be a hallucination. The musical, it has to be real. Like the Phantom has to be real. But in the novel, I don't know. The character might just be having a delusion of grandeur like the Wizard of Oz. Like the wizard is itself a grandiose figure who believes his own, bullshit. And I do think that we're getting the same scenario. Who is Carlotta? Like, this is a very murky figure. How do we know the facts are true? Is Gavin just making this up? But, Scotty's buying that she's real. I think Judy starts to believe she's real, and they don't know when to break away from the Gothic.
Mhm.
It kind of reminds me of the TV show The Haunting of Hill House, which I still
Yeah.
think is one of the best Gothic psychological thrillers ever. Like I've never seen something like that in TV. It's so horrific. Like there's something so visceral about how the ghosts manifest themselves that it reminds me of like a Vertigo where it's just not answered. And I think that's what works so well is we don't get the answers and we shouldn't get the answers,
Mhm.
because if you get the answers, it's kind of
The
everything
appeal
is
is
then
gone.
solved.
Yeah. I think that's what draws us to it too, is that the mystery behind it too, and the questioning. That's why it stays a good film, even though it didn't win an Oscar.
Yeah. Well,
Which is
just,
just so insane to me.
I know. It's just like Midsummer, though. Like to me, Midsummer was one of the best horror films that we've recently had. And um, I don't know who's seen Midsummer, but that opening sequence, oh my gosh. One of the most scare it was just really frightening. Like no gore film can ever touch what that did, what The Sixth Sense does. Um,
What Hitchcock does.
yeah, like it's all
Where they
part of
came from, yeah.
Hitchcock's mind. Yeah. Like it was about
Hereditary.
Like, as much as I hate to sometimes give him credit, because I don't always feel like it's just one person who's created this thing. Like, I like to think that there were people at different parts of, other parts of the world who were having these same thoughts. But Hitchcock is who we have. He is who is tangible. And I mean, I remember in high school having a film appreciation class and there just being a week of just Hitchcock
Mhm.
because of his ability not only to create horror but to create suspense, and to create suspense in a way that had not been done until he came around. And again, he can be problematic. I'm not trying to be like, oh yeah, he's amazing. I'm like, I can appreciate the art from the artist, but like what he did for horror and suspense film, we would not have what we have today if it weren't for him.
Yeah, we wouldn't have had Get Out, I think, if we hadn't
No.
had. Like, to me, Get Out also was a groundbreaking horror, social political commentary. It's humorous. I mean, yeah, to me, Get Out like does what Hitchcock and Scream does, like
Mhm.
blending Scream and Vertigo. It has
Mhm.
that with racial elements. Like for me, Get Out does such a good job addressing that. Like to me, Hitchcock's weakness is he focuses on white bodies.
Oh, of
Like that's what
course.
David Grevin's article points out, is
Yeah.
there are really rare circumstances of
Mhm.
non-white bodies. And yeah, so Hitchcock could have done a little more, but I won't only say that's because of Hitchcock. We'll say that was the Hollywood industry.
Mhm.
Since apparently he had
Yeah.
more non-white bodies in his English films, but in America they weren't giving him those same opportunities with non-white actors.
Mm.
And yeah,
Go
I'm trying
Hitchcock
to
in that
even think,
respect.
like, what psychological film do we have that features a non-white character? Get Out. I'm thinking,
Get
like,
Out,
is
but we
there
also
something
have the
before Get Out?
maybe not before Get Out, but the series that came out after the fact, which I cannot remember the name.
I feel like the Twilight Zone had done some
Yeah.
Yeah.
episodes
Mhm.
Oh,
with
absolutely. The
non-white
Twilight Zone
actors.
had.
Hold on, I'm gonna look it up now. I know it.
There's probably several. I don't know my like film history so much, but I'm sure there were several. Like claiming ignorance here.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, Christian, like, have you done any films yet where a person of color is the lead?
Not yet, but we did, not technically yet, but we did our Gone with the Wind episode, which was our second one, but we never
Yeah.
did where it featured Black characters, but we haven't covered a film yet that has a Black woman or Black individuals as the lead stars. Not yet. We have that on our roster. I think we have a couple on our
Yeah,
roster.
there are.
It'll take a while, but
It takes
we'll
Well,
Lovecraft
yeah.
Country was what I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
With
And
Jonathan
speaking-
Majors, I fucking love that man. I
Mhm.
know that there are accusations that like going out against him, and I hope they are not true just because I am a fan. However, I will not be blind to be like if he did it, he did it, but also like his acting in Lovecraft Country is fucking stellar.
Mhm.
You can't
That was
deny
really
that.
good.
For anyone who's seen Lovecraft Country, you know that.
Yeah. Oh, Christian, I think you were gonna say something, right?
Yeah. Oh, you're talking. Oh, I'm sorry. I completely lost where. Forgive me. Yes, I would. Well, Mary, you were speaking about your film appreciation class. And thankfully they did. I hope they were able to do justice to Hitchcock while you were in school during that time. But I wanted to ask specifically, since we're talking about appreciation, I wanted to ask what before we get to our break, I wanted to ask each one of you, how do you think this film holds up today with the modern audience compared to when it was back in the late 50s and compared to now, if you think it holds up, if any aspect of it holds up?
Oh, I think it definitely holds up. I mean, the notion for women pretending to be someone they're not in order to get the person they want to be with, I feel like is still very strong. I don't feel like it's as strong, but there's definitely those undertones. But yeah, like that's where that sits with me.
Yeah, let's say Travis, you could go.
I would say it does. I mean, besides the sort of like what we talked about earlier, the components of like there being no people of like zero. Well, I'm not gonna say zero, because there's the illusion of Carlotta, but like
Mhm.
very few folks of color. But I think that's, a part of the time. But I think like the psychological thriller aspect of it, I think it still holds up. And I think the reason too that I say that is because we see that in the echoes of the films that we talked about earlier, or that y'all talked about earlier, that you know that we see in other movies, like television shows and film, that come from this sort of genre from Hitchcock as well. So that's kind of how it lives on, I feel like, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think it definitely, like, to add to that, lives on in the sense of like what Hitchcock scholars like David Grevin, like what I love about classic films and classic literature, like you can always add another layer. So like us even asking that question of, well, what classic Black films should we put on our radar? Like, what else are we missing? Like, how is race even being seen in Vertigo about, the Mexican American culture? Like to like look into those layers, because in Toni Morrison's Playing in the Dark, that's her essay that David references, but I also really think is a great touchstone piece. Like if you haven't read it, you should read it. It's that the absence of blackness is exactly the question we should be asking about race. Like, why is there an absence? That whiteness is a race. Like looking into the blondness is a racial
Mhm.
categorization, I should say. Um, but I did look up, there is a BuzzFeed article, 70 classic Black films everyone should see at least once. And the first is Carmen Jones from 1954. Um, actually, a play written by Oscar Hammerstein. Um, and Imitation of Life from 1959, which I can attest is about passing um, as white from a Black family, and kind of comes from the novel by Nella Larson called Passing, which actually just had a movie recently. When I was with Mary in New York City last year, I think it was last year, Mary, where I had seen the movie Passing because that had come out in the movie theater.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and that was a really well done
Hmm.
um film. So yeah, that's why when I teach, I always say do it in a cluster. Like I don't do Vertigo in a vacuum. Like
Mhm.
Sunset Boulevard, Passing, add these um we all watch things in a cluster. We don't just like watch something. Like even with my phone, when I was taking notes, I'm like looking up the novel for this. I'm looking up, like, we can usually do two things at once in this social media world.
And I think
Hmm.
like the fact that we couldn't think of one too is a big sign that they need to be taught more. And myself, I mean, I don't teach film at all, like zero, but I teach rhetoric. But I try to showcase more people of color, more folks that are marginalized, more folks that we have not heard from. And I think that that's really like important to do in all of our work.
Hmm.
I'm guilty of doing that too. Like I need to do more in my classes with that as well too. But yeah, yay. We know about that film too. So another one to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah. Well, and I can't wait for when Christian gets to Strangers on a Train, since to me, that's the most explicitly homoerotic is Strangers on a Train. Right? Yeah, that's what it's called. Where the another Hitchcock film. And yeah, I don't know. There's so many, actually, there's a lot of homoerotic classic films, which is why, that old gay classic cinema can
Hmm.
continue going and going and going. Especially before the codes were enforced, the Hays Code before the code, there was a lot of queerness, like
Hmm.
blatant queerness on the screen.
Yeah. And I mean, I say as there should be.
Yeah. No,
Like,
there's a TikTok.
why not?
Yeah, I think it's queer. You might know Christian, but is it queer classic cinema or queer cinema archive? I think that's what it's called on
It's on
TikTok.
Instagram as well.
Oh yeah.
I do follow that page and I love their Instagram page because they have videos of multiple different classic films that have these elements of queerness in them. And I'm like, I need to talk to this person because his posts are very inspirational. And and underneath these videos, he posts these amazing like reflections on how this was made, or like in like, I guess, more information on how the film was made, what it's called, how you could find it and stuff like that. But I really want to get in contact with him because he seems such of a person that I would love to talk to, because I'd love to see like what his views are. But I do every other post, like it's either something from, let me pull it up here, right here.
Well, don't worry. I'll send this clip to Queer Cinema Archive.
Let
We'll
me
get
know
you
who
in
it
touch,
is.
Christian.
Yes.
No, it's an
Uh,
amazing account.
There we go. Yes. Oh my God. They posted a video on Divine a few days ago.
Divine.
And I cannot wait to get to Gilda. There are so many queer references in that film.
Yeah.
So many there's just any.
Well, there's a multitude. I mean, the
There's a-
podcast Movies That Made Us Gay, which eventually you'll definitely have to like get in touch with.
Yes, I do love that podcast.
They just did Legally Blonde. So, but they also did The Wiz, which I love The Wiz
Oh wow.
I
film.
love
But yeah, no, I
not
feel like
love The Wiz. I
yeah,
feel like
but
something is
we're
seriously
definitely
wrong
going to
with
review
you.
that in our second volume, which is going to be like in the 70s and 80s films that we're going to cover. So I might want to ask them to come on and see if they. But Andrew,
oh,
you
you
said that you love The
should.
Wiz.
That's a good cross collab. Yeah, you definitely do it. I'm
We're
sure
gonna
they
add
would
them. We're
come.
gonna have you back since you love The Wiz so much, and we're gonna ask someone else to come in who loves The Wiz too.
Have
So
you read George
the
M.
underrated.
Johnson? Sorry to interrupt.
What was that?
George M. Johnson. He wrote a book called All Boys Aren't Blue. He loves The Wiz too, and he would be great to have. I mean, he's kind of but yeah, I think he would love to join the podcast. He's just amazing, and so that book, and then he has a memoir about growing up queer, and it's so good. But he talks extensively about the Wiz in that book too, a lot. It's just so good. So anyway, that would be a recommendation as well too. He's incredible. Yeah. And the
Travis,
book
if you could send me the information privately, that would be great. So I
totally.
can know for all of us too. So then I can send it on to Andrew and then to Mary, and then we could all have a little, maybe a book discussion about it if we so want to read that book. Which I think
But
would be
that's what
fun.
I love is we're all in conversation with each other as podcasters. Like everyone is, it builds and builds. And, that's why I just want to thank you, Christian, for, like having
Thank you for
my
your
social
patience. We're not
media.
done yet. I wanted to say that I wanted to ask if we could take a little break.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. Hey guys, we're gonna take a little break. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. So rest yourselves up. We'll be back with that OK Classic Cinema discussing Vertigo. Yes, continue talking.
Yay!
It's been a long fucking day. I'm sorry. Off mic.
I hear you.
Yeah, no, it's okay. This won't be on.
You know what's happening. I was in therapy. I was in Wall Street, and a friend of mine was that it's Fleet Week, and I'm like, I
is.
I didn't realize it. I was like, damn, okay. I could have got myself a Navy man, but okay.
Oh my God.
They're roaming the streets right now.
Could have
So I'm
got
like,
yourself a Gene Kelly.
I know you could have gotten a seaman.
I could.
Yeah. Oh wait, Christian. I know it says Chris,
Love
but
it.
I'm so used to calling you Christian.
It's okay.
Is it? Seems like this is going to be 2 parts. Is that right?
Yeah, if you want. I don't know how long we have. I don't want to because I was gonna say if you want to make another recording, or unless you have unlimited time.
No, you're fine. Like we're
Let's
okay
see,
because
I'm
I pay for
good.
this.
I'm
Okay.
excited.
I mean, I'm okay
to be
until
part of
like
this.
I'm just a little hungry, but
Please do not feel the need to not order anything because I know it is late. I don't want to keep you guys
oh no, I was
anymore.
gonna say I have
feel
my
like
food
it.
here.
Oh, you have your
But
food.
Yeah, me too.
Okay,
I'm
well,
good.
no. I have like I have plant-based
I don't
chicken
want to keep
fingers.
you starved. So please feel free to eat whatever you want. Don't.
No. How much longer do you think we're gonna go? That's just what I
We
wanted
could
to ask.
go until 9:30. 9:30.
Like 8:45.
Okay.
8:45.
Is that okay?
Yeah, 8:45.
Whatever
would be
anyone
good.
needs, I am good. I'm just
But then like
excited
I can
to
stay
hear.
with you, Christian. I know like I just wanted to chat with you and Mary just about business stuff
Yes.
until like 9. So yeah, but I feel like this is definitely more than enough for 2 parts. Like just in the sense that like I even like Mary and I will do 2 parts for something and it's like a 40-minute episode each.
Yeah.
Because
But
we just keep
because
talking.
but we'll talk about it after because I think I'm gonna feature this on the Ivory Tower as a teaser on a Saturday.
Oh,
Because
cool.
Mary's gonna time it with one of her true crime episodes.
Uh-oh.
About somebody
do you-
getting
Mary, I
cut
do
off
have to
the bell
talk to
tie.
you about, because I just did my I handed in my true crime case study paper, so I wanted you to read it. So because I got my grade back, so I got an A on it. So.
I'm not surprised.
That's good. See, things are good,
excited
Christian.
for
They're all
you.
it's all gonna be
Oh my
fine.
gosh.
Trust me. Wait, so
I
what's
just
the
loved
last?
what your, you know, your piece was on and everything about it. And I was just like, fuck yes. Like, this is wonderful. Like, I'm so excited
Okay.
for
Wait, what's
someone
the
to just
last?
dive
Sorry.
into the world of women and poisoning and how that became a fucking thing. Like,
Uh-huh.
it is insane.
Wait,
Insane.
what's our last section, Christian? Just for
We were
like
just
your
talking.
question.
Oh my God. Our last section is just closing statements. So we're going to
Oh.
talk about fun facts of the film and then closing statements, and that's it. I guess closing statements means like what your links are, where we can find you guys, and blah blah blah
Oh,
blah.
yeah, we're good. We got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can
Okay.
talk more about just like 10 minutes about I guess, Andrew, your favorite parts about the article that you read, and like, that
I was gonna
stuff.
say,
Like,
I think we covered it. We're good.
you think?
Like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I
So
think
you know what? Do you
we
think
got
we're
a
good
lot
to
out.
just cut to the closing statements
I
then?
think so.
If that's
Yeah.
okay with you,
Sure.
and then we can
I think
end
we
to like
gave
8:45?
the audience a great performance, in my
Like,
opinion.
I think
Hey,
so.
there's a lot of
I think so.
humor.
You know what? I'm gonna let me
Sure.
welcome you guys back, and then we can end. We can just
Yeah.
end and be like,
I think
okay, we
it's
had this great conversation, and then we just end it with where your links are and where we can find you guys. Is that okay? And then we can end the call. And then we can end this whole recording process, if that's okay. Because I don't want to keep you guys any longer than you should be here for.
we're
'Cause I
good.
know-
Yeah. But
Yeah.
definitely, if this is 2 parts, I would say, like listening, like organically speaking, I feel like there's a shift that happens in the conversation with
Yes.
like the green dress moment.
yes.
Like I do
Yeah,
think
I can definitely cut it off at the section where we discuss, I guess, my queer aspects in the film, and then I can go from there.
oh, I like that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that'd
that's
be
good.
good.
I could
That's
cut it
great.
off. I don't remember who was the last person to speak about their queer aspects of the film, but then I can cut it off there and then do a little blip and just say, listen for part 2 and blah 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 blah, and then we'll start
Yeah,
with
give a
me
little teaser.
go into.
Exactly.
Or
Yeah,
you could
I'll
get
help you
the
after. Don't worry, Christian.
Yeah,
I'll give
get
you
the
some
rest of them on
advice.
Patreon.
I'll give you
again,
advice.
I'm not here today, so I'm just
No, you're here. You're here. Don't
You're
worry.
I'm
totally
here, but I'm not
fine.
here.
You're good.
You are
It's
here and
okay.
you are
There's
thriving.
we're all together. Okay.
We're all
But yeah,
together.
we're
All
ready.
right.
We're ready.
And welcome back, you guys, to that old gay classic cinema. We're here discussing Vertigo. We had such a great discussion with Ivory Tower Boiler Room's hosts, Mary and Andrew, and our very fabulous guest, Travis Rountree here. We're going to end this conversation for you all because we've had such a grand old time. And I wanted to extend another thank you to everyone who was able to come on today and ask where we can find you guys if anyone is interested in looking us up.
Oh yeah. Well, maybe have Travis go first because Mary and I can go into like a diatribe.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm you can find me on social media at Twitter, Travis A Rountree, Rountree, no D, ironically. On Twitter, and just follow me on there. And yeah, I also just want to say thank you for having me on here. This has been a joy and just a great way to spend a Friday night. So I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and just wanted to make sure I followed Travis, and I do on Twitter. But you can follow me. My personal social media is public, so please follow me. Instagram is at Andrew David is my middle name, Rimby. Twitter is at Andrew D. Rimby. And then the Ivory Tower Boiler Room is on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and Facebook. It's all Ivory Tower Boiler Room on TikTok and Instagram. Ivory Boiler Room on Twitter, and Facebook is the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. So yeah, follow all that, please. And listen to it on any podcast platform. And then Mary has her things.
Yes, and I am married to Pippi. I am the host of True Crime in Academia, which Christian will be joining me shortly. We are going to talk about all things women and poisoning, and I could not be more fucking excited because I mean, for people who are in like deep with true crime, we all know that for women, there has been a history of poisoning. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Christian and I, we are going to fucking get into it. And I cannot wait. However, if you want to listen to all true crime and academia things, you can go to Instagram and TikTok at True Crime and Academia or on Twitter at TC and Academia.
Yeah, I'm just so happy you're going to be doing this episode together. So, I
I am
can't wait
so
to hear about
excited.
poisoning.
I
Poisonous
cannot
women.
wait. I cannot wait. The amount of inspiration that I had, my professor, before I go into that, I wanted to say that you can find us on Instagram at that old gay classic cinema. So far, we only have that. Hopefully we can expand more to TikTok and more, but so far you could follow us on there if you'd like to follow us.
Yeah.
My also personal account is that_book_nerd_221. That's my personal page if you guys wish to follow me and find my book worminess, nerdiness galore. Yeah, so guys, I wanted to say thank you guys again for coming on tonight, and we had such a great night. I think we can all agree that Hitchcock is a great fun movie night to just explore and discuss and just evolve more. It's a great conversation starter, and it's a great way to just gauge your audience and to see who can understand the magic of the magic of Hitchcock and see what the master of suspense has in store. So thank you guys.
No, thank you. And I cannot
Absolutely.
wait to be back again, Christian. And, glad Ivory Tower Boiler Room and that old gay classic cinema are friends. So thank you, Christian. So nice to have Travis here, who's a new friend, and Mary, of course,
Yes.
lots of love to her, and Christian. So yes, thank you.
Thank
I
you all.
love your podcast.